They didn't betray you with a slap. They betrayed you with a smile. Not with daggers, but with silence, timing, and restraint. That's what makes it lethal. It's not your enemies that exhaust you. It's the people closest to you. The friend who stood silent while you were humiliated. The lover who knows exactly where your cracks are and presses just enough to widen them without ever looking cruel. The relative who eats at your table, toasts to your success, and secretly hopes you never outshine them. And it's all done in whispers, in delays, in invisible pauses that speak louder than any insult ever could. This video is not about betrayal by strangers. It's about the slow poison of those who know you intimately and use that knowledge not to love you, but to wear you down just enough that you never rise beyond their comfort zone. We're going to explore the quiet kind of betrayal, the kind that doesn't make headlines, doesn't leave bruises, but makes you question your worth one passive-aggressive moment at a time. These are the betrayals that happen over dinner, in group chats, in family reunions, in pillow talk. They don't end with a door slam. They end with you sitting alone, wondering why you feel so empty around people who love you. And make no mistake, silence is not neutral. Indifference is not kindness. There are people who will never lift a finger against you, but will also never lift one for you. And that is the betrayal. If you're tired of feeling confused, dismissed, subtly diminished, like, share and subscribe to Victory Stoic right now. Because here, we don't teach you to fight fire with fire. We teach you to walk away like the storm they never saw coming. And in the comments, drop one of two things. A story where someone let you bleed quietly, or our Stoic command of the day. I see it now. I choose distance. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. The fake concern, the subtle jealousy, the eerie quiet when you succeed. The way they always almost support you, but never quite show up when it matters. That's not an oversight. That's design. This video will give you the language, the mindset, and the clarity to identify and outgrow the people who cheer when you crawl and vanish when you rise. We're not here to teach you bitterness. We're here to teach you boundaries, stoic ones, quiet ones, sharp ones. So if you're ready to stop bleeding slowly from 1,000 invisible cuts, stay with me. Because what comes next will show you the truth no one dares say out loud, that betrayal doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just fails to show up. And that's enough to break you, until you decide it won't. Number 1. The quiet delight in your downfall. They don't laugh out loud, they don't gloat. But the moment your plans fall apart, your business hits a wall, your relationship collapses, they look oddly relaxed. Their tone is gentle, their words are soft, but there's something in their eyes, in the pause between "I'm sorry to hear that" and the next breath, that tells the real story. They're not heartbroken. They're satisfied. No, they didn't wish you ill. That's what they'll say. But they didn't mind watching it happen either. Because some betrayals don't arrive as attacks. They arrive as stillness, strategically placed, coldly timed, carefully hidden behind politeness. Psychologically, this is what researchers call Schadenfreude, a German term for the pleasure derived from another person's misfortune. Studies have shown that people, especially those who perceive others as rivals or threats, often feel a subtle boost when those people fail. It's not always conscious, but it's there. And the closer the relationship, the more insidious the feeling becomes. You know this person. They were your childhood friend, your cousin who always made comparisons, your coworker who supported your side hustle but never mentioned it once publicly. When you succeeded, they smiled just a little too tight. When you failed, they exhaled like they'd been holding their breath. Take Sarah, 32, a freelance designer from Dallas. She launched her own studio after years of working under someone else's brand. She shared her first project pitch with her friend group from college. Everyone gave polite responses, except Elena. Elena smiled and said, "This is so bold of you, it's a tough industry, but I admire your bravery." Months later, when Sarah's first client pulled out and the launch stalled, Elena was the first to call, not to ask how Sarah was doing, but to subtly remind her. "I mean, you kind of jumped too fast, didn't you?" It wasn't the words, it was the timing, the tone, the gleam in her voice, the way she asked, "Are you still thinking about running your own thing?" As if she already knew the answer and liked it. This is the betrayal of quiet triumph. They don't sabotage you. They simply root against you from the shadows and call it realism. They frame their doubt as concern, their smugness as care, their relief as empathy. But behind every poor you is a silent, smirking, "I knew it." The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once warned, "It is not he who reviles or strikes you who insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting." But Stoicism also demands truth over illusions, and when you start recognizing this silent pleasure for what it is, an internal betrayal wearing a friendly face, you stop taking it personally. You start seeing clearly. So what do you do when you realize someone close to you feeds off your failure? First, stop offering updates to people who only show emotional interest when things go wrong. If they perk up when you suffer but disappear when you thrive, that's not curiosity. It's consumption. You are not their soap opera. You don't owe them episodes. Second, set information boundaries. Not every friend deserves access to every detail. You're allowed to succeed and struggle privately without turning every moment into an opportunity for quiet critics to feed their ego. Third, watch their body language, not their words. Research in nonverbal communication, Dr. Albert Mehrabian's work is foundational here, suggests that tone and body language often carry more meaning than verbal content. When they say, "That's too bad," but their posture relaxes and their tone lifts, believe the body. The body doesn't lie. Fourth, don't confront them looking for confession. They'll never say, "You're right, I enjoyed watching you fail," but you'll know. And that knowledge is enough. Stoic detachment doesn't require dramatic exits. It requires internal adjustment. Here's the metaphor. You're climbing a mountain. It's tough. You slip a little. Most cheer you on or offer a hand, but one person stays seated at base camp, sipping coffee, watching the rope shake. When you fall, they're the first to say, "That's why I never climbed." That's not wisdom. That's cowardice dressed as foresight. They were never planning to rise, just waiting for proof that you couldn't either. You don't owe them your apology. You don't owe them a show. What you owe to yourself is the ability to keep climbing without looking down to see who's clapping when you fall. Let them smirk. Let them whisper. Let them hide their glee and sympathy. Because the next time you rise, and you will, they won't know whether to congratulate you or disappear again. And when they say, "Wow, you did it," you'll smile and say nothing, because you finally understand. Some people were never silent because they cared. They were silent because they were waiting. Number 2, the favor that never ends. Help disguised as a leash. They helped you once, maybe twice. A ride when your car broke down, a little money when you were between jobs, an introduction, a roof, a favor. And in the moment it felt like grace. You thanked them, genuinely, repeatedly. But here's what you didn't know. You were not receiving help. You were signing a lifetime contract of unspoken debt. Because with some people, assistance is never a gift. It's a moral mortgage. One they'll collect on forever. Not with interest, but with reminders. Tiny guilt bombs, casually dropped in moments you least expect. "I just thought after everything I did for you. I mean, not that I want anything back, but still, you're acting like you forgot who had your back." Or the more venomous, "Funny how people change when they don't need you anymore." It's emotional blackmail, weaponized kindness, generosity turned into social control. And it always shows itself the moment you say no. Or worse, disagree. You're not allowed to have opinions anymore. You're not allowed to set boundaries. You're not allowed to move forward without checking in with the high priest of your past survival. Why? Because they were there. This behavior ties directly to a psychological pattern called emotional scorekeeping, where people subconsciously track every act of giving, not as a reflection of love, but as a down payment on future power. Dr. Brené Brown calls it debt-based relationships, where every act of connection is laced with an IOU, even if no one admits it. Take Marcus, 40, a gym owner in Phoenix. Years ago, his friend Deshaun lent him $3,000 to keep his business alive. Marcus paid him back, with interest. Wrote him a thank you letter. Took him to dinner. Publicly acknowledged him multiple times. Fast forward 5 years. Every time Marcus hires someone new, chooses a different vendor, or changes a routine that Deshaun once recommended, he gets hit with, "Damn, I guess $3K only buys so much loyalty these days." Marcus once said, "I paid the money back, but I didn't know I'd be paying for the memory of the favor the rest of my life." Seneca, the Stoic master of boundaries, wrote, "Kindnesses, like bread, must be given freely, lest they spoil." True kindness does not demand eternal gratitude, and real support is measured by the freedom it gives you afterward, not by the leash it attaches to your throat. So how do you deal with someone who sees their help as a tool to control you? First, separate the favor from the person. Acknowledge what they did. Then separate it, psychologically, from who they are now. Just because they once saved you doesn't mean they now own the narrative of your life. Second, thank them once, firmly and finally. "I've always appreciated what you did for me. I hope I've shown that, but I can't carry it like a debt anymore." That conversation might burn a bridge, but if it does, that bridge was a cage. Third, don't beg to prove your gratitude. People who help to control will always move the goalpost. They don't want thanks, they want emotional submission. You owe them respect, not obedience. Fourth, remember the Stoic principle of reciprocity. Give what you can, when you can, but never at the cost of your integrity. If a gift costs you your voice, your choices, or your peace, it's not a gift, it's extortion with a smile. Here's the metaphor. They handed you a life jacket when you were drowning. You survived. You swam to shore. But now, years later, they keep walking beside you, waving that same life jacket and saying, "Remember who kept you afloat." What they don't say? That you're the one who kept swimming. That you're the one who made it here. That maybe you're not drowning anymore. Let them keep their scoreboard. You'll keep your distance. And the next time they mention that one thing they did years ago to justify why you owe them your silence today, just smile and say, "Thank you again, now let me live free," because that's the kind of gratitude they hate the most. Number 3, they call it constructive criticism, but it always aims for the softest spot. They tilt their head. They smile slightly, then they strike. Not with venom, not with rage, but with something worse. A sharpened truth, dipped in fake concern and delivered with the tone of a friend who cares. They'll say, "You're doing great, but try to be more approachable, people find you intimidating." Or, "I admire your ambition, just don't come off so full of yourself." Or, "You're such a catch, if only you didn't seem so picky." It sounds helpful, it sounds fair, but it always lands right where it hurts. This is the betrayal of disguised cruelty, and it often comes from those closest to you. The colleague who masks competition as mentorship, the cousin who always has a little advice, the partner who insists they're just trying to help you grow. But growth shouldn't feel like being dismantled. Piece by subtle piece. Psychologists call this criticism under the guise of support. It's one of the most common forms of emotional manipulation in close relationships. The key indicator? The feedback isn't meant to uplift or improve. It's meant to undermine while making you feel like you're being uplifted. It's a compliment poisoned with a sting, so soft you doubt your own reaction. Take Eric, 34, a chef from Portland. After years of freelancing, he finally got a gig cooking for a major local event. He told his longtime friend Greg, expecting encouragement. Greg raised an eyebrow and said, "That's amazing, man. Just try not to get too cocky about it. You know how you can come off sometimes." It stayed with Eric the entire week. He found himself second-guessing how he spoke to people, apologizing when he didn't need to, laughing at jokes he didn't find funny, just to seem less cocky. And that event? It went well. But in every photo, Eric's smile was tight, anxious, haunted by a sentence disguised as support. Stoicism offers a brutal but freeing perspective here. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. But if they merely criticize without reason or understanding, I ignore them." Criticism is not the enemy, but intention matters. Real feedback leaves you clearer, not smaller. It points to solutions, not just your wounds. These people don't want you to change. They want you to hesitate, to shrink, to carry their commentary with you like a quiet weight in every room you enter. It's not guidance, it's psychological sandpaper, designed to erode your edge while pretending to smooth you out. So how do you respond when someone cloaks their contempt in constructive wrapping? First, examine the pattern. Are their comments always framed as just trying to help, but somehow always leave you less confident than before? That's not growth, that's grooming your insecurity. Second, ask yourself, who benefits if I believe this? Does this criticism push you to expand? Or does it keep you in the version of yourself that's more tolerable to them? Often people prefer you small, agreeable, non-threatening, and their feedback reflects that preference, not your potential. Third, consider the ratio. Someone who genuinely wants you to improve doesn't only point out flaws, they celebrate wins, they acknowledge effort, they uplift between critiques. If every compliment comes with a sting, it's not feedback, it's dominance. Fourth, test the waters. The next time they say something like, sometimes you come off a little arrogant, respond with, interesting. What exactly made you feel that? If they fumble, get defensive, or dodge specifics, you'll know they didn't observe. They just wanted to jab. Here's the metaphor. You're sculpting a statue. It's not perfect, but it's yours. You let someone in to give you notes. They walk around, nodding. Then, instead of pointing to a crack you missed, they chisel your face off and say, "You'll thank me later." That's not art critique. That's sabotage. You are not required to accept every critique just because it's said calmly. You're not obligated to thank someone for insight that slices through your confidence. And you're not overreacting when you flinch at comments meant to poke at what you can't yet defend. A real friend corrects with care. A mentor uplifts even while challenging you. But someone who always finds the bruise and presses it, that's not someone who wants your growth. That's someone who wants your glow dimmed. So listen, but don't absorb. Hear them, then question, is this truth or insecurity in disguise? And if it's the latter, walk away. Not with bitterness, with clarity. Because you've just seen the difference between help and harm. And a Stoic doesn't keep standing where they're slowly being unbuilt. They don't fight. They don't defend. They evolve elsewhere. Number 4, they demand your sacrifice, then call it love. You're always the one who adjusts, the one who cancels, the one who pays, the one who understands. And every time you hesitate, they tilt their head and say it, "I thought you were a person who lived with heart." That's the trap. They glorify your exhaustion, they sanctify your silence, and they name your self-erasure as virtue. This is not love. This is not loyalty. This is emotional taxation dressed as intimacy. These people don't ask for balance. They ask for quiet compliance. They don't want to meet halfway. They want you already there when they arrive, hands full of needs, pockets empty of effort. And if you ever dare to ask for reciprocity, boundaries, or just a moment for yourself, you're met with the guilt script. Wow, so all I've done meant nothing? I never thought you'd change like this. You used to be more giving. This isn't conversation. This is character assassination disguised as disappointment. Psychologically, this falls under the umbrella of emotional guilt conditioning, a subtle yet persistent tactic where individuals manipulate others into overextending themselves, not out of love, but out of fear of being seen as selfish, cold, or ungrateful. According to Dr. Harriet Lerner, guilt is one of the most effective tools used in emotionally imbalanced relationships, not to build connection, but to control behavior. Take Alicia, 38, a marketing executive in Denver. For years, she supported her younger brother through rehab, paid parts of his rent, and hosted him for holidays, even when he barely spoke to her unless he needed something. The one time she refused to co-sign a loan, he told their family, "She's changed. Got some money, forgot who helped her." The narrative flipped instantly. Overnight, Alicia went from savior to selfish, not because she did something wrong, but because she finally said no. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life on others' imaginations. Be your own master and see things for what they are." That's not cold, that's clarity. You're not cruel for choosing peace. You're not heartless for refusing the 100th request. You're not less caring because you finally asked, "And what about me?" So how do you escape this slow bleed disguised as emotional generosity? First, redefine what living with heart actually means. It's not giving everything until you're empty. It's choosing what, who, and when, intentionally. It's love with consciousness, not guilt. Second, set limits not with apologies, but with certainty. Instead of saying, "Sorry, I just can't try, that doesn't work for me, period." No explanation required. Your worth isn't measured by how much of yourself you erase for others. Third, stop fearing the labels. You will be called selfish. You will be told you've changed. Good. You have. That's growth, not betrayal. Fourth, keep score, but not out of bitterness. Keep track of patterns. If the only time someone praises your kindness is when they need something, you're not being loved, you're being harvested. Here's the metaphor. You're a well. People come to drink. That's fine. But someone builds a pipe from your source to theirs 24/7 and says, this is what love is. No, it's not. Love is a cup, a moment, a ritual of care. A well drained without pause becomes a crater. And when they call your burnout living with heart, remember, that's not heart. That's hemorrhage. So reclaim yourself. Refill your own well. Speak plainly. The next time someone praises your giving nature, ask yourself, would they still admire me if I stopped giving them everything? The answer will tell you everything. Because you're not ungrateful. You're not cold. You're just done bleeding for people who only call it love when you're too tired to fight back. And that's not selfishness. That's Stoic self-respect. Number 5. The compliment that cuts and the smiles after you leave. They smile. They say something that sounds like praise. You almost feel good until your gut tightens. Something didn't land right. Something in the way they said it, in the way they emphasized the wrong words, made it feel less like a pat on the back and more like a reminder of who you used to be, who you shouldn't forget you were. You're looking sharp these days, not like before. I always knew you had potential, even when you were kind of a mess. Or the classic, I'm glad you finally figured things out. Compliment on the surface, subtle knife underneath, and behind your back, the real verdict spills. She's doing better, but don't be fooled. He got lucky. He's still that same insecure guy deep down. They'll clap for you in public. But in private, they reset the narrative. This isn't honesty. This isn't tough love. This is reputation sabotage with a handshake. Psychologically, it's a blend of passive aggression and relational undermining. According to Dr. Julianne Holt-Lundstad's work on social relationships, subtle forms of exclusion and negative talk within one's social circle can cause more long-term psychological damage than outright hostility. Why? Because the betrayal is masked in affection, making it harder to confront and easier to doubt yourself. You second-guess it. Maybe I'm too sensitive. They didn't mean it that way. At least they're acknowledging me, right? That's how it works. The insidious part of this betrayal is you participate in it by minimizing it. You fill in their blanks, you excuse the tone, you laugh off the dig. Until one day, the compliment you receive becomes a curse you carry. Not because it told you who you are, but because it kept whispering who you used to be. Take Troy, 42, a recovering addict and now a counselor in Atlanta. After 5 years clean, a stable job, and mentoring others, he ran into an old friend, Nick. Nick smiled and said, "Man, it's good to see you standing tall again. I still remember those nights when we had to drag your ass off the floor. You've come far." Everyone around chuckled. Troy smiled too. But that night, he couldn't sleep. Not because he was ashamed, but because Nick made sure no one forgot the version of Troy he had fought like hell to leave behind. Stoic wisdom speaks clearly to this. Seneca wrote, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." But betrayal doesn't always come from prosperity. It often comes when others can't stand to see you rise out of the category they boxed you into. You rising disrupts their identity. It challenges their self-image. And so they keep handing you gifts with strings attached, praise laced with poison. So what do you do with a person like this? First, stop explaining yourself. The more you try to clarify or reframe their backhanded compliment, the more power you give them. Let the sentence hang. Let the awkwardness sit with them, not you. Second, separate intention from result. Whether they meant to hurt you or not is irrelevant. The impact is what matters. If it dims you, step away. Third, be a witness, not a reactor. When someone says you're finally getting it together, just nod. Say, "Thanks, you too," and move on. Don't give them the satisfaction of a visible bruise. Fourth, guard your name. If you hear they've been dragging your past into rooms you're not in, call it out, once, firmly. "I heard you brought up my past again. If you can't talk about who I am now, maybe stop talking altogether." Let your tone do what their fake praise never will. Clarify the boundary. Here's the metaphor. You're a tree that's finally bloomed, and they walk by every few months just to remind everyone where your roots came from. This tree? Yeah, it used to be a stump. A dead one. They water you with credit, but they never want you to be more than your soil. Let them talk. Let them flatter with thorns. But remember this, The Stoic doesn't shrink to fit the memory others have of him. He outgrows it, wordlessly. So the next time someone gives you a compliment that echoes like a slap, don't argue. Don't shrink. Look them in the eye, smile, and say, I don't live there anymore. Because your past is not a punchline, and your growth doesn't need their permission to shine. Conclusion: not every wound bleeds, but it still hurts. They never raised their voice, never raised a hand, never once said, I want to see you fall. But they did. Quietly, elegantly. With a smile and a toast. With a story that starts with no offense but, and ends with your name in someone else's mouth. This is the age of silent betrayals, where envy comes dressed in encouragement and disapproval is served cold as concern, where people don't destroy you directly. They just leave the gate open and let the wolves in. And the most dangerous part, they still hug you at reunions. Still comment proud of you under your post. Still tell others, we go way back. They're not the villains in your story. No, they're the narrators who keep rewriting your chapters without your consent. But here's what Stoicism teaches us. The people who truly support you don't need a spotlight to show it, and the ones who betray you silently are often the ones clapping the loudest when you fall. You're not crazy for noticing. You're not paranoid for protecting yourself. And you're not bitter for walking away from people who only show up to be seen in your light, but never to carry your fire. So what do? You don't scream, you don't beg, you don't explain the betrayal to the betrayer. You go stoic. You observe, you document, you adjust, quietly. And then you build a life so solid, so deeply yours that no whispered doubt can shake it. Let them check in. Let them mean well. Let them wonder why your boundaries got so firm. You owe them nothing but distance. And maybe, if you're feeling generous, a last smile that says, I see you now. If this message hit home, like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. This is where we speak the truths others are too polite to admit. In the comments, leave your Stoic command of the day. I see through the silence. Or better yet, share a moment when someone's quiet betrayal taught you more than their loud support ever could. Thank you for listening. Thank you for surviving what they thought you'd never even notice. And most of all, thank you for choosing your peace over their performance. Because now you know, real loyalty doesn't whisper while you're burning. It brings water, or it walks away in shame. And from here on out, you'll know exactly who's who.